Question 11 asks for the employees that have all but one of their invoices written after February 15th, 2002. And then it goes on to clarify that all but one after means exactly one before this date and one or more after the date. And it gives you a hint to use group by with having for that and to display the employee name. So let's do something similar with the purchase order table. Select star from purchase order, and I'm going to order by order date just to get an idea of what the data looks like. So we want to find some suppliers with exactly one purchase order before a date and at least one purchase order on or after that date. And so I'm going to pick the date 4/23/01. So exactly one purchase order before then and at least one purchase order after that. So let me get rid of the order by. And first I'm going to find all the records for purchase orders before 4/23. And I can just write this as a date. And SQL is smart enough to do the right thing there. And then I'm also going to select star from purchase order where order date is greater than or equal to 4/23/2001. So here are all the records in two groups. And I want to find out how many lines each employee has. So for each FK supplier number, I want to collapse all the rows for that supplier into one row, and I want to count how many rows got collapsed. So I'm going to select the count, and we'll call that as count, and FK supplier number. And then I want to do the same thing over here. Actually, I don't even need to. I just need to know who's in this table. So for this table, I'm just going to return the supplier numbers. And I'll execute this. Oh, so I have to do the group by to do the collapse. Group by FK supplier number. And let's try it now. So I want to find the suppliers that have exactly one count here and also appear in this table. So to find the ones that have exactly one here, I add having and then count of the number of rows equal 1. So that's exactly 1. And then let's try this, see who we get back. And now since I want to find the suppliers in the supplier table who are in this set of supplier IDs, I just want to return the supplier number. So these are the ones with exactly 1 before 4/23. These are the ones with at least 1 after 4/23. And to find the suppliers in both sets, select name from supplier where supplier number is in the first set and supplier number is in the second set. So here's the first set. And here's the second set. And here's the whole query. And these suppliers should have exactly one before and at least one after. So question 12 asks for the name of the employee who built the most expensive stove. So go into the stove type table, which has a price field, find the most expensive stove here, link back to the stove table by finding the one where the type and version match the type and version here, and then that will get you to the employee who built that stove. So the only tricky part here is making sure that the stove that you get has the same type and version as the stove that you get in this query. So let's look at the parts of that query. And we'll go ahead and find the stove that cost the most. And we'll order by price in descending order. So the Fired Always version 5 is the most expensive stove. So now I'm going to find the stoves that are Fired Always version 5. And the way I'm going to do that is by basically gluing the type and version together. So I'm going to use the same thing we used earlier on in this lab, where we formatted the type and version as Fired Always V5. And so that's going to look like this. It's going to be an R-trim of type plus V plus an L-trim of version. So this whole thing is going to be equal to the string Fired Always V5. So let's see if we got any stoves. And we did. So there were 2 Fired Always version 5 sold. Serial number 17 and 79. So now I want to find the employee who built the stove. And both of them are FK EmpID 8. So let's see who that is. So it's Mike Wentland. So I'm hoping that you can take these queries and change them to write one big query. You're going to do basically what I did here. You're going to return the type V version, and this is going to return a string value for the most expensive stove using top 1, and then you'll match this to the value of the subquery and return the EmpID for the person who built that stove, and then you'll put that inside of this query to find the employee whose EmpID matches the value of that subquery. So question 13, show the names of all customers who are invoices on invoices which contain parts. So we're going to need to get customer in our outer query, and we're going to need to go through invoice and then invoice line item, and then we're going to have to find the ones that have links to part. So let's look at all those tables. Select star from customer, select star from invoice, select star from end line item, and select star from. Actually, that's all we need, really. We just need to know whether it adds parts, not which parts it is. So let's go ahead and look at that. So let's start with the bottom. And we want to find all of the lines where the part number is not null. Okay, so that's going to be where FK part number is not null. And now we want to find the invoices that are listed here. So select star from invoice where invoice number in 201, 202, 211, 221, 236, and so on. So we only have a couple more, so 236 or 206. So here are those invoices, and then we want to find the customers in this set. So select star from customer where FK customer ID is in 111, 125, 105, 122, or 125. And that's just the customer ID, not FK customer ID. So here are the customers who had invoices which contain parts. And you just want to show the names. Show the purchase order number in terms from the purchase order table where the corresponding supplier's rep phone number is in 541. So you're going to be looking for the purchase orders where FK supplier number is in the set, returned when you select the lines from supplier where rep phone number is like 541%. So let's find the customers whose phone number is in 541. So we're going to start with a query on phone that's going to wildcard match phone number. We're going to return the customer ID from that, and then we'll select that customer or those customers whose customer ID is in that set. So select FK customer ID from phone where phone number like 541%. So here are the customers in 541. There are none. So let's do 503 instead. I know there's some from Portland, so. Okay, let's look at all the customer data. Select star from phone. And surprised we don't have any 503s, but let's go ahead and let's do 551. 487, there's a couple of those, so we'll do 487. Okay, one customer. So select name and state, province from customer where customer ID in the set containing this query, and then we only want to, yep, that's right, that was right. So here's the customer from 487, a Raincoat Mountain Shop in Colorado. Last question. So which stove models, combination of type and version, so we're going to use that same trick with like Fired Always V5 or Fired Now V3, have never been purchased by customers in California? display stove type and stove version, and then a hint, finding stoves never sold in California is not the same as finding stoves sold outside of California. So for example, if a Fired Always V5 was sold in Oregon, but was also sold in California, you wouldn't want to include it in this list because it had been sold in California. Even though it had been sold outside of California, it still doesn't count. So the right way to solve this one is first find the type and version for all stoves sold in California. And then look for the stoves that have type and version not in that set. So to get to stove, we start with customer, we go through invoice, invoice line item, and then stove. That gets us the stove type and version from the customer in California. So we'll start with select star from customer where state province equal CA. So customers in California, and then select star from invoice where invoice number, where FK customer ID in 102, 113, 115, 129, 132. So invoices for customers in California. And now select star from in line item where FK invoice number in 208, 214, 227, 230 invoice line items for invoices for customers in California. And then select star from stove where serial number in, and then we have a list of all the stoves that are in these invoices: 67, 68, 69, 66, 4, 5, 11, and 28. So these are all the stoves that have been sold in California. And then if we want to get the type and version, rtrim type plus ltrim version. So we have a few of them. Now let's find all the stoves that have type and version not in that list. Copy this. Not in, and then fire now v1, a single quote, and fired always v1, fired now v2, fired at camp v3, fired always v1. We already have one of those. We have v1, we don't have v2, so that's that one. And then that's all of them. So close this set, and we need a comma there. Format that a little. So here are all the stoves that aren't in that set, and these are all the stoves that were never sold in California. So you're going to want to return the type and version, you're going to want the distinct values, and you're going to want to order by. Does it say order by? Nope, doesn't say anything about ordering, so just return the type and version. So good luck on these, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.